Welcome to another week of the Brazos Sports PrepsCast. I'm Alex Miller, joined with Abigail Ochoa, our high school reporter here at the Eagle. We got a lot to discuss. Some big games last week. Lee Fedora winning his 200th career game. We'll touch on that in a second. And the Bryan Vikings, fingers crossed, they're going to get back on the field this week after 2 weeks not being able to play due to COVID. And we've got David Campbell, former Eagle writer, and the guy who calls play-by-play for the Vikings. He's going to join us to give a little district preview for Bryan's district. So, Abigail, how are we doing today? We're recording this on a Wednesday for those who are listening. How are you doing today, Abigail?
I'm doing good. I'm so excited to see the Vikings play on Friday. It was weird having only 3 teams to talk about in in Bryan College Station. Now we're getting another one. So it should be exciting. But a good week of games we had last week. Some people starting district, like College Station, and then, like you said, Fedora getting his 200th win, which is awesome.
Yeah. I think let's start with Consol and Lee Fedora getting their 200th win. Consol hosting San Angelo Central. The Bobcats making that 5-hour drive over from West Texas. But, hey, they almost made the trip worth it. They didn't make it easy on the Tigers. Sutton Lake, he had a big game. Kyle Willis had some big touchdown throws. Came down to the final quarter. Consol, they were a little sloppy. San Angelo Central capitalized on a couple turnovers. But, hey, the Tigers, they found a way to make it work, and they got the win in the end. Abigail, what did you think of Consol's win over San Angelo Central?
Yeah, as I was getting the updates, I was like, whoa, this is, a lot closer than I think we even anticipated. We knew San Angelo was going to come in and, put up a fight, but it really came down to the end there. But again, Consol was able to kind of, their offense kind of carried them again this week. They did have some turnovers again, which I think we mentioned at the beginning of the season to maybe kind of watch out for it because they had some trouble with that as well. They had it again in this game, and that really almost made the difference for them, really, when it came to the end. They were down at halftime, had to really come back. They faced a tough quarterback in Malachi Brown, if that's how you say his name. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, but yeah, when you're facing a guy like that, the team that traveled almost 5 hours to come and meet you in College Station, it's really good that they came up with a big win. You have Lake again, who was actually wearing his brother Jude Lake's number, which is awesome. I know Travis talked about that in his story as well. Jude is out for the season with an injury, so he wanted to represent his brother and did it quite well. Had 3 touchdowns for 184 yards. Great game. Willis again with that arm. I mean, he threw a couple of bombs out there, one for 40, one for 77 yards to kind of beat out Brown there in the air. But again, they're gonna really have to watch out for those turnovers. Those are gonna one game is gonna hurt them if they keep doing that. So it was really good that they got the win. They got Fedora's 200th win, which I'm sure he was really excited about. But the defense did step up at the end and really come in clutch for them.
For sure. Big win for Consol, facing adversity. And we'll get to the Tigers' final non-district matchup. They're playing on the road at Willis this Friday. We'll touch on that here in a minute. On the other hand, the other team in College Station, they had a tough time on Friday night. They got ahead early, but they weren't able to hold on to it. Kind of fell apart there in the second half for the Cougars, and they dropped their district opener to Magnolia. Abigail, you were out there on Friday. What'd you see from the Cougars? A tough loss for them starting that. It's a really difficult district for them, too. I mean, that's a tough game to lose.
Yeah, this district, I mean, we've said it so many times this season already. It's going to be tough for them. Coach Huff has said the same thing. It's going to be tough. We knew it would be hard. And we saw that on Friday. It was clear. A little bit uncharacteristic of how, the Cougars played. It was the first time I was out there seeing them play this season. Offense seemed they couldn't really find a rhythm. It was getting a little hard. Magnolia was able to kind of stop Roderick Brown and Marquise Collins, and on the run game. I think Collins only had one touchdown on the night. It was a pretty short one. So they really saw their first defense that really gave them a fight. They won the first two games pretty easily. And we mentioned that it wasn't going to be the same in district, and it certainly wasn't, especially on the road. So they kind of leaned on their defense a little bit more. Special teams, Dawson Shrimp, their kicker, I know he did it last year against Frisco Lone Star, made some, good field goals for them last year, but they weren't able to finish it up in area. Same thing in this game. He was able to, punch in some pretty long field goals for them. He got 3, 16 lead going into halftime, but the defense, which was really strong. We've seen them play this season. They're really strong. They don't have a lot of people coming back, really, at least on the line, but they seem to be stopping, anybody who really comes to them. They showed that in the first half. In the second half, I don't know if it was just they got tired. They were out there, for a certain amount of time. They weren't used to seeing an offense that was as, high-powered as Magnolia this season yet. So we really saw it kind of fall apart at the end there, and they let go of some, big touchdowns that Magnolia was able to come in at the end and win there. So it'll be interesting to see how they do this week and kind of come back from that. But it was, I don't know if it was for you, but it was uncharacteristic of kind of what we've seen from them so far.
Yeah, for sure. The Cougars are a very disciplined team, a lot of firepower on offense. So the fact that they got shut out in the second half was a little surprising. And I guess the one plus is Dawson Shrimp and his performance. You kind of feel a little more confident about your kicker. I know Coach Huff, being a former college kicker himself, they take a lot of pride in special teams. So having some, you feel good about your kicking game. That could come in handy later in the season when you're in one of those tight games, especially in the playoffs. So
and he got some long ones. These aren't. It was 27, 47, I believe, and then 39. These aren't like, he wasn't all, really close. He was pretty far away for these. So, it's good to know that he has that kind of that power.
Yeah. And one more of the big schools, Rudder, they beat Nacogdoches in that kind of short notice rescheduled game. Rudder's original game against Waco U got canceled. We had to redo our last segment of the podcast last week. So fingers crossed that all the games stay as scheduled this week while we're recording here on Wednesday. I know it's a little early and anything can happen between now and Friday night, but Rudder, they beat Nacogdoches, very athletic team from East Texas. And you said it, Abigail, they kind of needed that all-around win, and they kind of got that, didn't they?
Yeah, they really did. The offense, like we've said before, it's hard to stop them. So again, they played well. You got Lee coming out with 4 touchdowns. When he's able to get in the end zone, Rudder seems pretty good on that front. Then you got the defense who was able to shut out Nacogdoches in the second half. They had a couple of interceptions from Marcus Hurd and Dylan Preston. And then you also saw the special teams get 2 blocked punts. So it really was like an all-around effort to get this win. I think we talked about it last week when they changed the game, that we weren't sure if they were going to play, if they were going to take the week off. I think it proved to be really good that they didn't take the week off and that they were able to find somebody. We're going to talk to David about this, but, their district is not going to be easy once they get to that point. They got Huntsville to start it off, who they lost to last year, which they didn't make the playoffs because they lost to Huntsville. You got Gonzalez, who's doing really well as well. So it's really good to see this all-around effort from Rudder. I think if they continue to keep this up, it'll look good for them. But it'll be exciting when they start district, especially if they can go in undefeated, which we'll see this week with Lockhart. But
for sure, the Rangers, they're trying to put together a special season, and they're off to the right start. Down in the small school ranks, one game of note last week, I was out at Leon and Normandy. Second straight week, I got to watch the Leon Cougars, and it didn't go as well this Friday as it was the week before when they played Centerville. Normandy, man, they raced out to a fast start, and they never looked back. I mean, they jumped ahead 41-0, and before Leon could really blink, I mean, the game was kind of out of their grasp, and it was tough for Leon, I think, after the big win over Centerville. Mason Hardy, he was really good for Normandy. He had 5 total touchdowns. He found Isaiah Jones for 3 of them. That connection has been lethal, especially down at the 2A level. I mean, you get a quarterback that can throw, an athletic wideout. I mean, they've got the pieces in place on offense to really make things happen. And then up front, I mean, Leon just they couldn't get good control of the line of scrimmage. Normandy really controlled things up front, and so that Cougar offense, that it can be pretty potent. Jacob Robinson, he kind of had a hard time connecting with his receivers. They didn't really get into a groove. And so, yeah, that's a big game too, because they were both 1-0. Now Normandy's 2-0, and now Normandy, they're going to play Grapeland, and Grapeland is the other 2-0 team in that district. It's only a 6-team district, so there's only 3 games left. And so Normandy wins this game, they're in the driver's seat for that number 1 spot. And we've seen Normandy from the start of the year to now. I mean, they're unbeaten. They're 6-0, I think. And so that's a big win for them, and this is a really pivotal game for them coming up.
Yeah, they're looking good this season. Normandy, like you said, they haven't lost a game so far. I saw them in week 1, and, when they beat Fremont, they looked great then. They still look great now. You mentioned Hardy and Jones, that connection. In week 1, Jones only had 1 touchdown, but that guy can get up there. I mean, that guy jumps, and he's already tall. He jumps, and he's way over those defenders. And I talked to him about that in week 1. He just like, what? I just go for it. I go for any pass that Mason kind of throws to me. So it was good to see them come back together and have a big game, like you said. But we weren't quite sure if Normandy was gonna lose this game, because they were doing so well. Leon just beat Centerville, and it ended up happening. Hardy won kind of the quarterback duel, like we were talking about with Robinson. Robinson did have a pretty good yards, I believe.
He had a better second half for sure.
Yeah, they just weren't able to kind of come back from that. It's really hard to come back from, what was it,
41-0.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard for any team to come back. So good to see that from Normandy, that they keep going. I think this week will be kind of, like you said, pivotal in how they're going to go the rest of the district play. But good matchup regardless. But we really saw the power Normandy can kind of come out of the gates running. So
for sure. Well, up next we've got David Campbell joining us to preview the Bryan Vikings and their district. The look ahead. Bryan getting back on the field for the first time in 2 weeks. So we'll be back here in a second. All right, welcome back to the Brazos Sports PrepsCast. Joining us now is David Campbell, former Eagle Rider, and he still does play-by-play radio for the Bryan Vikings, and he keeps up with everything around here. Dave hadn't lost it, but we brought him on so we can preview Bryan. They're starting their district play this Friday against Harker Heights, and we'll touch on a little Rudder Rangers too. But David, thanks for coming on. How you doing today?
Doing good, man. It's good to have a game this week after a couple of weeks off at Bryan with some COVID-19 problems there, but it looks like everything's back on schedule this week.
Yeah, I mean, what's kind of the feeling in Bryan? I mean, I know that's tough for them not having those last 2 games, and they had won a game and then they weren't able to kind of build off it, and now it's straight into district. These are the games that matter.
Oh, I don't think they know what's about to happen, to be honest with you. You're going into a really good into a competitive district. I don't know how good it is because it's probably not as as tough as the 5A district they were in the last time out.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a very competitive district. And you're playing a playoff team in Harker Heights. This game got moved up from December 4th to this opening game prior to the district so they could build that game in at the end, or the open date at the end. But Harker Heights is a playoff team a year ago, so it's a very good game. I think Bryan's got a chance if they play well. But they've got a lot of guys that hadn't been on the field for a couple of weeks. They were just back in practice on Wednesday of this week, which is today as we record this. And so it's really hard to know exactly how they're going to play. If they play well, I think they've got a shot at it, though.
Yeah, we've seen this happen before, David, like with teams that have, gone off for a couple of weeks of COVID, come back, only have like 3 days to prepare, 2, whatever. So what's going to be the key for Bryan against Harker Heights? Obviously, Rogers coached there before, but this is kind of like the first time that they're getting back in the swing of things since week 1.
Yeah, and it's it really is kind of a big deal for them to get things together. But they're going to do it with a limited number of practices and probably kind of compressing their practices this week. And by doing that, you don't want to overwork the guys that have been out there and say you're just going to wear them out. But you got to get some guys get back fresh and be ready for the game on Friday night. I think it's best that they're playing at home, and I think that's an advantage as they take on a team I think they've got a chance to beat. But again, they need to be really sharp, and they really were up and down in that opening game against Waller. They had, punt blocked for a touchdown. They had some special teams breakdowns, but they had a good running game. They had some real positive things that happened as well, and both of their quarterbacks that got into the game both played pretty well when they were in there.
Yeah, I know that was a big thing. I know Rogers even said like interchanging them, Bulloff and Gooden, because they can kind of, one of them can be a receiver while one's a quarterback and things like that. We did see some good things in week 1, like you mentioned. But, again, they had to kind of come back and win that game from what I heard. I know Rich was there, but it's going to kind of be interesting to see how they, bounce back, like we said, from the short week and stuff. But how important is it this week to kind of show a little bit of that progress? Obviously, it's a young squad, but how important is it going to be to show, like, even with the 2 weeks off and stuff like that, we're still making progress in a way?
Yeah, I think you got to show that you're making progress. Yeah, I think you want to do that any time. But I think this is a little more important because you look at the games. There are probably games in this district because of the quality of the teams they're going to have a hard time competing in. When they go to Temple, that's going to be difficult. I think Shoemaker is going to be very good. There's some really solid teams in this district. When you have a chance to pull a win, get it, and then maybe when you play Temple next week, you're a little bit more confident, you're a little bit better, and with an opportunity to get the win over there. They've had a tough time over the years against Temple, but that goes way back in Bryan history where they've had great teams and had a hard time beating Temple. So it's a game that's been going on for quite a while. But Harker Heights, Ross knows them obviously really well. Because he knows that area, and apparently he's got like an alumni association going on because he coached at Waller, and now he's taking on Harker Heights in the second game they're playing.
Yeah, definitely some familiarity there with Bryan and Ross Rogers, and I know that Bryan back in the day when they were in the old 5A, before they were in 5A. What was 4A, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
They were often with those area teams, the Temple, the Colleen schools, Harker Heights, Coppers Cove, the Beltons. How much does that familiarity help when you're looking ahead at a district slate? And what do you really see how this district plays out? There's a lot of schools that it could go a lot of ways, it seems like.
Yeah, I think Temple's the favorite. As you look at the quality of the people they played, and they lost to Arlington Martin last week. Martin's pretty good. That might have a lot to do with it. And it's not. And they had a couple of bad things that happened for them. So Temple has got to be your favorite. But there are openings there. And Bryan, for one thing, Bryan's not playing the teams that they played before down south when they were going to the Cy-Fair district. Many of those teams, their enrollments were like 1,000 more than what Bryan had. that there's still some big schools, but not that much bigger. So I think it makes it a little easier to be competitive here. And so I think the Vikings have got an opportunity to make the playoffs. It's going to be challenging, particularly when you hadn't been out there much.
For sure. What do you feel like is what would you deem as a successful Friday night for Bryan? Obviously, a win would be successful, not having played the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But what would you deem as a success for the Vikings on Friday?
I think they need to not make some of the really bad turnovers, the touchdown causing turnovers that they gave up in the opening game. I think those things need to be eliminated. I think the running game needs to go extremely well. I think the passing game is going to work its way out, but it's going to be, hit and miss. Bryan's got a pretty good defense, but they're, again, a lot of young players out there. And so you're going to have to work some of these guys in. And all you can do there is just keep getting experience, and you'll get that with every game you play. But the second game, when some people are out playing week 8, it seems a little weird to me. But I think mostly get the experience, get beyond it. If you win, then you got really something solid to build on. I think this, and I do think they've got a chance to win this game. And I let me throw one other thing. Bryan's going to, I think they're planning to do this week. This is the 50-year anniversary of when Stephen F. Austin became Bryan, and I think Bryan's going to have a little something special in their look for the game this week.
Okay. Well, that's definitely something to be on the look for Friday. Thanks for dropping that little nugget, David. We appreciate that.
I'm all for nuggets. I do like nuggets.
I love nuggets. I know our colleague Travis Brown loves the cinnamon sugar beaver nuggets at Buc-ee's too. So
Yeah.
All right. If he's a Buc-ee's guy, then he's okay in my book.
Yeah, Travis is all right. Well, but I think we'd be remiss to not talk about the other Bryan school, Rudder. I mean, the Rudder Rangers, they are off to a hot start. That offense is electric. They're vying for that first playoff spot that they've ever had in school history. What have you seen from the Rangers? And they've got a chance to make some noise in that district down at 5AD2.
Yeah, I think they do, and they've been building toward this. Right now that Coach Izar is the second winningest coach in Rudder history. He did that in a couple of years, and CM Pierce still. I think he's got 14 victories, but I mean, I think it's 8 now for Coach Izar, and they're going to go to Lockhart. That's correct.
Yes.
This week.
Yes.
And so that's an important thing because you go buy Buc-ee's on the way and you get to eat barbecue when you get there. So that's if anybody's covering that game, boy, that's a big game to be covering this week. I like what they can do offensively. Obviously, they've had a little struggle defensively. They've given up some points, but they can outscore people with Keith Ronley catching passes and Dials out there catching them and Izar at quarterback. That's a good offensive team. It's a really good offensive team.
Yeah, last week I said that Rudder was going to need like an all-around game against Nacogdoches, and they were going to need to play, some opponent, whether it be Nacogdoches or whoever. But they really had that last week. I think the defense kind of really said, "Hey, we're here again." Special teams came together, so it was really good to see that kind of all-around team effort. Before obviously Lockhart now, and then you go into district against Huntsville the next week after that. Might be too soon to tell, but I mean, I was at that Huntsville game last year. I think this year it'll be a little bit of a different story, maybe coming into that game.
Be a real contrast of styles because Huntsville's a really, really good defensive team, and you're going to probably see one of the better offensive teams in the district going against a really good defensive team in the district. It's going to be that's going to be a heck of a game, and I don't know. I like Rudder's chances to get in. I mean, their best chance before was the third year of existence when they went 7-3, and I think this team's got an excellent chance to make it to the playoffs this year.
I'm right there with you. I think Rudder's got a chance. I think they got a chance to push for one of the top spots in the district. I think Consol and Huntsville are definitely their top competition, and Consol's playing lights out, but Rudder's playing pretty well themselves. And I'm really curious to see how they finish non-district play this week. That Huntsville game's right around the corner, and I know that's one that they're eager to get.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you can't really look ahead to that game. I mean, they're what they're doing, and I really thought they'd beat Nacogdoches last week, and I'll tell you why. Because that game was thrown together in the middle of the week, and all kinds of kudos to Bryan ISD for throwing together a game in minutes almost. I mean, that was just rather amazing to pull that off. But Rudder's a tough team to defend against when they're blitzing linebackers, and you've not seen this on film. It's not like you've had all week to work for it, and they'll come at you a lot of different ways. And I've been a Keith Ron Lee fan since the first time I saw the guy play. And somebody out there, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's one of the better guys that I've seen play. And he's big time. Somebody needs to figure out, I don't know what kind of recruiting attention he's getting, but he needs more, whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the dude is absolutely electric. And, you look at a guy at A&M like Anais Smith. He's not very big, but he makes an impact. He makes plays. He's got speed. He's versatile. I mean, you can plug and put him wherever you need him and give him the ball, and he's going to go. So, yeah, I'm really curious to see how Keith Ron Lee's recruitment shakes out, see how it goes once some of this tape gets out. I know it's a weird year for recruiting anyway, with no visits, limited contact with coaches, which really stinks for the players, especially a guy like Keith Ron Lee that, he traditionally could be a guy that he blows up the fall of his senior year. But I'm right there with you. I'm curious to see where Keith Ron ends up. I think he's going to make an impact in the college ranks for sure.
If you're a guy that hadn't been really on the radar as much, if you get to the playoffs, it gives you more opportunity for more people to see you. So there's an advantage, and I think it's an advantage Rudder's going to take advantage of this year.
Absolutely. Well, David, I think that's all we got for you today.
I don't get to talk about Iola or Burton or Bremond. Come on, man! What a letdown! I can't do Rockdale. Okay, no, I'm good.
That's awesome. Well, David, thank you so much.
I left.
What you got any thoughts on
They're
Hearn?
undefeated.
They are undefeated.
I like Hearn a lot. I like their coaching a lot. I think they're going to win that district. I think they've almost already locked up the district. But the quality of people that they've beaten already has been pretty impressive. And boy, I wish they had played that game against Franklin now. Gosh, I'd love to have seen that.
I think we all wish that game would have been played. It would have been a good one. It's a shame that one had to get canceled because that one was going to have some fireworks.
Hey, and by the way, thanks for having me on. Even if it was a week after Scott Clendenin, and it was a bit of a letdown that Clendenin got on ahead of me, and then it occurred to me, he had a game last week. I didn't, so I appreciate it.
Well, hey, before we go, I know you're going to be on the call Friday night for the Vikings. How can people tune in to listen to the game, and where can they find you on Twitter?
We're on you can find me on Twitter at Scoop Sports. I guess that's what it is, at Scoop Sports. But I won't be doing on Twitter during the game because I'm not that talented. But we'll be on Sportscom. Check it out there, and they'll hedge and point you in the right direction.
All right. Well, thank you so much, David. We really appreciate it, and hey, hopefully we'll have you back on soon. We really love this.
Take care, guys.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Well, welcome back. We got 3 games to preview real quick. We've already touched on Bryan, so we're gonna keep moving. We've already touched on Rudder a little bit, but just real quick, the Rangers, they're closing non-district play against Lockhart. The Lions, they have not won a game this season, and Rudder, they don't really show signs of slowing down. This is the first time Rudder's gone on the road since week 1. Abigail, what do you think is the key for Rudder, and how big would it be for them to be undefeated going into district play, especially with that big game against Huntsville on the horizon?
Yeah, going undefeated and into district play, I don't know. It sets you up really good, I think, for a playoff. Like we said, Huntsville and Consol are going to be the biggest hitters when they get to district. They're going to start off with Huntsville next week. So I think really, having confidence, if their defense can really step up and play again this week and not kind of falter like it did against Wise, a game that we thought was going to be kind of a shutout there. If they can kind of keep steady, their special teams can just kind of also just stay in that zone again. I think they'll be fine this week. I do think that they'll be going into district kind of undefeated with this win against Lockhart. It's the first time that they're going on the road since week 1 at Bastrop. We saw what they can do, obviously, on the road. So I think that they should be fine there. Their defense just needs to keep it steady, keep it consistent, and not really kind of try to do too much. They just need to, because we know what their offense can do. But, I was at that Huntsville game last year, in a game for Rudder, whether they were going to make it or not into the playoffs. So they ended up losing. They weren't able to kind of come back from Huntsville. We know that Huntsville is a very strong team. They usually are, and I don't think it'll be any different this year. But you got a different Rudder team coming into this matchup next week, obviously. It's hard to look too much forward, but I think that'll be a great game. They'll be at home, I believe, against Huntsville, so they'll be coming back, and it'll be a fight to the finish on that one.
For sure, and hopefully Coach Izar can treat his players to a little bit of barbecue, whether that be a chopped beef sandwich at Black's or maybe some sausage links over at Kreitz. See if that might be in the cards, or stop at Buc-ee's, like David said. But looking ahead to A&M Consolidated, the Tigers, they are facing the Willis Wildcats. That's with a K. Consol had
there you go.
Consol had their first real test last week. We noted that earlier against San Angelo Central, but now they're going on the road. They're facing 0-3 team in Willis. I got to talk with Coach Fedora earlier this week, and I've got a feature on Consol's Vince Sheffield coming in Thursday's paper. I've also got one on Rudder's Colton Stewart. He is a horse champion. And starting defensive end for the Rangers. Yeah, he raises halter horses. So you'll want to read on that. Guy gets up at 5:30 in the morning, take care of his horses, goes to school, does practice, and gets back home, eats a little dinner, and then gets back out there in the barn, makes sure they're doing well. But yeah, interesting story. What was I saying? Consol. Okay, back to Consol. I got thought on horses, but yeah, Tigers, Lee Fedora, he told me that, that their defense, they want to see better tackling on offense. They can't have those turnovers. He said, people pointed out, you gave up 35 points to San Angelo Central. And he's like, yeah, well, our offense didn't really help us out when they turned the ball over twice and it led to 2 touchdowns. So it's really just cleaning up shop, making sure everything's fine-tuned, because he said it. They believe they got 3 different seasons, pre-district, district, and playoffs. Pre-district is ending, and their goal is to finish undefeated. I think Consol's got a good chance to come out victorious on Friday. But, if you're Consol, you definitely want to see a clean game all around in all 3 phases before you get into that district slate.
Yeah, you don't want to see any more 3 turnovers, 2 turnover games. Like we mentioned earlier, those are going to hurt later on. And I have no doubt that Fedora is kind of drilling that into their heads, and that they're going to come out with a win this week. Like you said, they're going back on the road, after being home this week. But Willis hasn't won a game yet. This year, they're 0-3. Consol is 3-0. I can't remember the weeks anymore, but yeah. So I don't think Consol is going to have too much of a problem, but they can't go into this thinking that it's an easy win either. Like we said, it's going to be so important for those turnovers to be limited this game, especially you want to see that from your team before you get into district play. With Rudder and Huntsville and so the stuff that they've been doing, this season. You don't really want to give them a chance to, take advantage of your mistakes at all. So that'll be important on Friday.
For sure. And our final game that we want to discuss, College Station, they're playing New Caney Porter. Both teams coming off losses in their district opener. Porter lost to New Caney, I believe, and College Station offense, we discussed it earlier. The key is getting back on track, getting that run game established, not letting their foot off the gas. Last week really leaned on those special teams and defense. See if that third phase comes around with Roderick Brown and Marquise. Abigail, what do you want to see from the Cougars this week?
Yeah, Porter's going to be another tough opponent. Obviously, we've said that so many times that this district's tough. But they only lost to New Caney. It was 21-19. So really tough, close game that they played last week. They weren't able to win either. College Station's coming back home after losing. I talked to Coach Huff after the game. He said, we're going to be fine. We're going to come back. We're going to bounce back and come back next week even stronger. He's right. They're going to be fine. We've seen this team we've seen what they can do. We've seen them be successful in the past. So I think they're going to be fine again this week. They'll be at home, maybe a little bit more comfortable than being on the road, but they're going to need to see the end zone more often. They're going to, there's only so many field goals you can kick. They're going to need to see Collins and Roderick Brown, running in those touchdowns like they've done all year. So that'll be really important for them. I think they'll be fine, though. This team is tough. I think they're going to come back. Their defense is really strong. They just need to be consistent kind of all throughout the game and not get tired at the end there and let up some big plays again. But we've said this before. I think they'll be good to go on Friday. It'll be tough, though. It's not going to be an easy one.
For sure. Well, Abigail, we got anything else before we're about out of time? Got anything else?
I don't think so. It'll be cool to see Bryan come back. We're excited to get them, talk a little bit more about them, see how they do after coming back from COVID. So that'll be what we're looking for this week.
For sure. And do you know which game you're going to be at this Friday?
I will be at College. Yeah.
All right.
So,
Abigail will be at College.
New Caney Porter. So.
All right. Abigail's going to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'll also have a. Sorry.
No, go ahead. It is a little laggy. Zoom.
Sorry. Our video
is up
here. I'll have a feature on Isaac Alvarez. He's a defensive lineman for the Cougars, the only returning defensive lineman on a young team, which is amazing to see what they've done so far with a young squad like that. But I'll have a feature on him in Friday's paper as well, along with Alex's 2 features. So it'll be a cool week.
All right, and I'm headed out to Bluebell Country this week. I'm going to check in on the Brenham Cubs. We haven't been out there this year. No. They're in district play, and so we'll see what the Big Greens doing out there in Washington County. They're playing Georgetown Eastview. Should be a good game. All right. Well, I think that's all we got. So be sure to follow us on Twitter and follow Brazos Sports. Send in scores Friday night so that we can keep tabs on everything going on in the area. And be sure to check in theeagle.com for all the coverage you want on Brazos Valley High School football. So thanks again for tuning in to the Brazos Sports PrepsCast. We'll be back next week. Well, I'm sure we're going to have plenty to talk about.
Thanks, guys. Oh, we'll have plenty. Bye, guys.